While outpost building is a completely optional system in Starfield, it's incredibly rewarding if you choose to engage with it. Today, I'm going to give you everything you need to know about outposts, from cargo links to manufacturing and everything else. Let's go! Let me know your favorite planet to build on in the comments. We'll start with the basics of building an outpost and then we'll get into everything else. So the first thing that you do to build an outpost is to build one. You need to bring up your scanner and then press the outpost button, and it will bring up the potential for you to place a beacon. Now, you won't be able to place beacons close to like points of interest on planets. You'll need to be a certain distance away from them. One thing to pay attention to about where you're putting your outpost is in the top left corner where it has the available resources. It's really important to make sure that you're building these outposts on locations that actually can be able to extract certain resources, especially resources you're looking for. And it's also easier to bring up your scanner and your outpost beacon and just like move it around the world to like locate these materials inside the radius of where the outpost will actually be. It can help you sort of find those actual deposits in the ground. Once you've found a location that you like, you can then build the outpost beacon there. It's always good to have an outpost on a location that has multiple resources available, so you can extract multiple resources, but we'll talk about that shortly. So place down that outpost and then you can get into the basics of building. So the general basics of building here, right? Like regardless of whether you've invested into skills and research, everything, you'll have some general items available to you to build structures, as well as the most base level of extractors. And the things to pay attention to on the build screen here in the bottom left are the build limit, which is pretty large. I've never actually hit the build limit here. It's definitely larger than Fallout 4. And then on the right hand side, you've got cargo, which indicates the amount of cargo links that you have to that outpost. You've got crew, so the amount of crew available at that outpost, the needed power, so how much power is actually being required by, say, your extractors or anything else and fabricators that you've built at that location, the total power available based on the power you've provided, as well as a production level based on what you're doing there and in terms of extracting or fabricating, what have you. You've also got the option to change your view, which is by pressing V on PC and whatever that button is on console, which gives you that really nice top-down view, which I really like building from for these larger sort of structures that you can build in Starfield. There are plenty of skills you need to invest in to be successful into outpost management and outpost building. The first is research methods. Now, this will reduce the amount of resources required to complete research projects. It's not necessarily like a must-have, but those resource requirements can be pretty expensive, especially when you get into some of the higher level research that you do need. The core one you need is outpost engineering. So what this allows you to do is construct the improved outpost modules, and the higher tiers allows you to construct the higher outpost modules or research them at the research lab. Now, you don't necessarily need to rank this out to rank 4, but if you do, it will then give you fewer resources when you do build at those outposts, which is definitely valuable to have. You will also need 1 rank of botany and 1 rank of zoology to unlock the animal husbandries and the greenhouses for your outposts as well. Planetary habitation at the bottom of the science tier is also really good, so you can build outposts on planets that have extreme conditions and also increase the amount of outposts you have. Really valuable for, say, if you're trying to extract like all the resources or just like build on certain planets. It can definitely help you with that as well. Special projects can also be helpful, so you can craft some of the more unique resources that are used in some of the higher tier outpost modules as well. You'll need to make them at the industrial workbench. Also, the outpost management skill is great as well, so you can have those additional cargo links and then additional robots or additional crew or additional extractors, depending on the tiers that you get for outpost management. So once you've picked, say, some of these skills, especially outpost engineering, you'll need to head to a research lab. So you can check out my research and crafting guide here as well if you want like the full breakdown of all of this, but we'll cover it very briefly here. Is that in the outpost tab, this is where you can research the better developments for your outpost, say having more decoration options available to you, or increasing the power generation, or robot options, or defense, or greenhouses, or animal husbandry, what have you. It's all under this option, and you'll need to invest in this system if you want to unlock the rest of all of the outpost modules, which you absolutely should be doing if you want to invest in this system further, because they are tangible upgrades, especially, say, the increasing of your resource extractors and getting those higher tiers like the commercial ones will maximize the amount of resources you gain from them, so it's definitely worth investing in. Before doing any research, you should consume a neurojack, so it reduces the amount of resources required to research projects, but it also gives you a 50% chance for sudden developments to happen, which essentially just like gives you a material filled out for free, and that just saves you so much resources, as you do need to invest a ton of resources into this system. So in consuming that aid item is also very valuable. So let's talk about the different types of categories in the Outpost builders. We'll go through each one individually, and we'll start with the extractors, as it's one of the simpler ones to sort of understand, because the main purpose here is to extract materials. Now, every time you build an outpost, the extractor tab will be different depending on what you can extract at that specific outpost. So when your outpost is built, within its radius, if there are any certain mineral deposits or water that you can pull up from the ground, you can also flick through the different variants, which will say like be the commercial variant, for example, may require more power, but it will actually extract more of that resource from the ground. Now, when you build these initially, they will need power, and we'll talk about power in a little bit, but as they are powered, they will start extracting that resource and just extract them into its own container. Now, you can create an outpost link on these items to either move them into a storage container or move them into a builder, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. But by pressing that option to create an outpost link, you can then connect the extractor to, say, a storage device or something else, and you want to create that link from the device that you want the resource to be sent from to that extra device that you want it to go to. But we'll cover that more extensively in a little bit as well. Power is the next category. Now, this is definitely an important category. Not only will it power your extractors, it'll power any lights you may have or defenses or anything else that you have built. Very worthwhile investing in power and upgrading it through the research tree. So initially, you'll have like a solar array and a wind turbine. Now, these options both won't be available on every planet. It depends on what you've got on that planet. Say if the planet has no wind, it won't have like a wind turbine or so solar array for the same example. But always pay attention to the amount of power that these actually produce when you're looking at the menu option, because some planets may produce a lot more power from wind than they would sun, or vice versa. But each of these will say how much they actually produce in terms of power, and you'll obviously need more power, like total power, than you do needed power, which you can view on that bottom right hand side as well. So make sure you're building enough of these to actually power everything you've got. Unlike a Fallout 4, you don't actually need to connect wires with your power stations as well. Just by building them, they will power things in the general vicinity, so you don't actually need to connect them manually via wiring or something like that. This category also includes lights, which are pretty self-explanatory what they do. I don't know if I need to tell you what a light does, but just thought I'd call that out. The storage category is very important, just like extractors. So not only can you build, say, a storage container for solids, liquids, or gas to actually just store these resources you have extracted from the ground, you can also build a warehouse which can store like actual made resources that you are creating from your builders, or a transfer container. Now, a transfer container will hold resources at your outpost, and it will create an additional like tab in your cargo hold menu that will allow you to just pull resources directly from that outpost if you are in its general vicinity. You can't do this like cross system or something. You have to be like actually there, which is disappointing. I wish this would allow you to use it, say, like in another system or something, but then I guess it's like just another free container. But the main purpose here is on those storage containers to hold these resources, especially if you are extracting a lot of resources and connecting them via cargo links to other sites. You want to have these larger storage containers to hold those resources, so you can then pump them into builders or something, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But make sure that you're connecting these via those outpost links that we touched on earlier. So you want to actually click on, say, the extractor or wherever you want the resource to start from, and then select the storage container or where you actually want that resource to go into. Then that's how you connect those via the outpost links. Builders are a big category, just like extractors. Now, there are a couple of things to consider here from just the generic like fabricators or getting into the plants and animal husbandries. So we'll start with like the general fabricators. Now, what you can do with fabricators is create any of these objects that you can create at an industrial workbench. The higher tiers of these, like the compound fabricator, will allow you to create the higher tiers of these crafted resources. Now, when you're selecting these from the builders and you like flick through them, and it'll say what it produces down the bottom, whether it be like an adaptive frame or what have you, you don't actually need to create that specific one. Once you've created a fabricator, you can click on the terminal and select any of those options, as long as it's the right fabricator for that specific type of material that you're trying to create. So in order to actually use these, you need to add the specific resource into them so you can actually create them. So in this example, I had my fabricator creating adaptive frames by pumping in iron and aluminium, and which was coming from a cargo link and then into my storage container and then into the fabricator. But I wanted to change that to be a mag pressure tank. So in order to do that, I needed additional nickel as well as the aluminum that was already in my storage. So if I had set up, say, a nickel farm and that was going automatically into my storage container, it would just pull that automatically. But just to use this example, I just added nickel to my storage container, and then via that outpost link, it's just being automatically pumped into the fabricator and just creating mag pressure tanks for me automatically. Now you can actually pump these out of the fabricator. If I wanted to, say, build a warehouse and then connect it via an outpost link, I could move these resources out of the fabricator into that warehouse, which has a higher storage limit, so then it just wouldn't get full, because the fabricators do actually get full over time. So I can do that as well if you wanted to. The other two main ones in this category is the animal husbandry and the greenhouse. So for both of these, you need to go out and scan the fauna for the animal husbandry and the flora for the greenhouses in that specific planet. You will also need, say, botany and zoology for both of these to then research them at the research lab like we talked about earlier. Now, it's also worth pointing out that if there is nothing available on that planet, say none of the flora or fauna can be produced at an outpost, you won't actually see these options in the menu. So it can be a little confusing, right? If you're wondering if that specific resource can be produced at an outpost, once you've fully scanned it, you'll see an option in that list that'll say outpost production allowed. That indicates to you that you can actually create it. And if you go back to that outpost, you'll see, say, a greenhouse or an animal husbandry available to you. Not all of these resources can be produced, which can be a little confusing and also a little annoying if the specific resource that you want from that planet, you can't actually produce at your outpost. So once you've fully scanned, say, the flora or the fauna, let's use the flora for example here, you can then go back to your outpost and create a greenhouse. And once you've created the greenhouse, you'll then need to provide it with the required resource similar to the other builders. So in this example, I'm trying to create structural, and I also need to pump water into my greenhouse in order to do that. So then I can build a water extractor, connect it via the outpost link, and then it will actually start powering it and creating structural over time, because I've also got enough power at my outpost as well. This is essentially exactly the same for the animal husbandry. You do need to scan them and make sure that they do say that the outpost production is allowed. And then by creating an animal husbandry facility, you'll actually spawn some friendly animals at your base, and you'll need to then select the resource at the terminal that you're trying to create, and you'll need to provide it with the specific nutrients or materials in order to create that other resource. So in this example here, we are creating nutrient, and it needs to add fiber and water. So we would need to connect our builder with water and, say, fiber, which you could essentially create fiber from a greenhouse if that was available to you, and then just pump both of those resources into the animal husbandry, and it will then produce that other resource that you need out of it. So all of the things in the builder category are essentially around pumping in certain like raw materials into that device, and then it will create something for you on the other side, whether that be a different type of resource or a crafted material like the adaptive frames we talked about earlier. Structures are a nice, easy one to tie us over from the complexity that we just had. So these are essentially just like habitable areas that you can build with the different types. And really all the options here are cosmetic and up to your general feel that you want for your outpost and what you want to build. One thing I will note though is regardless of the option you build, in the just the modify option, not the build menu of the sort of like build mode, you can then actually change certain things. Like say if you're looking at a wall, you can change it to say have a window, or if you're looking at a doorway, sometimes you can change the type of doorway that's connecting it or remove the doorway if you wanted to. So when you're in that modify mode, you can actually change certain things. It's just worth calling out if you want to sort of change the general feel of these different modules. Crafting is the next one. Now the crafting one is pretty self-explanatory. Like this is just all of the crafting workbenches that are available to you. You can have these available to you on your ship or even at the constellation downstairs, but there's nothing special here. But the one that I will call out is the industrial workbench. So anything that we talked about in that builder section with those fabricators, you can actually craft them manually via the industrial workbench. This includes anything that requires, say, a special project. If you do have that skill, you'll be able to craft them there, which are needed for some of the higher tier certain modules you might create at your outpost. Defenses is the next category that contains all sorts of turrets that are available to you to build at the outpost to defend it if it ever gets attacked, whether that be by vicious creatures or something else. In my experience, I have never had an outpost actually attacked. Now, that may be different for you if, say, you build it on a planet that has a bunch of aggressive animals, or like if you've got the wanted trait and people come to you, or if you do a certain thing in the main story, which I won't mention. But there are definitely reasons to have defenses, but it's not going to be attacked as much as say a Fallout 4, where you're getting constantly spammed by raiders constantly attacking your settlements. Robots are a fun category, not only because they're cool, but because they also give you additional percentages to your production rates depending on the robot you build. So certain robots, say like the Garden Mini bot, will increase your production rate of organic resources. Those organic resources are things that come from your greenhouses by 10%. Different robots will give you different buffs. You can see them on the left-hand side. Like if you're building an engineering robot, it'll increase the production rate of your manufactured items. But there's plenty of options to pick here. As you do increase your research level with the robots, you'll have more options. Furniture contains larger cosmetic items that you can build inside your outpost. Say things like chairs and beds and benches and stools and sleeping bags and all that good stuff. Now, some of these items are interactable, like say your beds and couches if you wanted to sleep, but for the most part, they are cosmetic. And that's exactly the same for decorations. Now, decorations are the smaller cosmetic items, like say your posters, your storage containers, your safes, like those sort of things. And this is all like cosmetic things to sort of make your outpost look a bit more lived in, and different ways that you can build them, like plants, and make them look nice. Displays are used to hold all of your cool items and weapons and armor that you've found throughout your playthrough. Now, the different types of displays will display different things. Display cases will display things from like the Miss category that you may have. Weapon racks obviously display weapons, and then the mannequins will display your armor. Depending on what you build here, you'll be able to then open up like the inventory screen and transfer items into that display case or weapon rack, etc., and it will just automatically display on the rack. If the rack or the display case is full, the extra items you place on there won't actually show, so just make sure you're not overloading them. But that's essentially how you sort of show off any cool things that you've collected throughout your playthrough. The Miscellaneous category might be our last category, but it's quite a large one. So the first thing that you have here is scan boosters. Now, there are different tiers of scan boosters, but essentially what these do is increase the range of your hand scanner. That's depending on the size of scan booster that you do build. So say the smaller ones just double it, and then the larger ones quadruple it. So essentially this means you can scan things from further away and find things further in the environment on that planet, say if you're looking for certain things. The next is cargo links, but we're going to do cargo links and the crew stations separately, so just hold tight for a second. The next ones here that we have is the landing pads, both a small variant and the shipbuilder variant. I highly recommend building the shipbuilder variant. The small variant will only hold a small ship, and for the most part, you're probably going to have a ship that's too big for it. The larger variant with the shipbuilder allows you to like buy ships or modify your ship from it at your outpost. This is great to do because when you're looking to modify your ship here, basically every part is available for you to use in the shipbuilder, except for like the unique, like high tier custom ones that are required from certain star yards. But for the most part, every other component is available here. So definitely recommend building it from there. Now, you've also got the mission boards here. Now, you've got the standard mission board variant, the consolation mission board, as well as the self-service bounty clearance. The mission boards act exactly the same as they do when you find them at any of the different settlements, and you can accept missions from them and go and complete them for credits. The self-service bounty clearance is definitely worth building at any of your outposts. So what you can do from here is clear any bounty that you may have without actually having to interact with that faction. By interacting with that faction, they're probably going to knock you of all of those credits, but then also steal any, well, not steal because you stole them, but take any of those stolen items that you may have stolen from you. So if you got any contraband or stolen items, they'll take them when you get arrested. Whereas at one of these self-service bounty clearance machines, you can then clear your bounty without losing any of those stolen items that you may have actually taken. So let's talk cargo links and crew stations, but we'll start with cargo. So what a cargo link is it allows you to connect your outposts in order to transfer resources, whether that be raw materials or crafted resources, from one outpost to another. The standard cargo link will only operate within a specific star system, and it doesn't require any resources. You just need to build one of these at each of the outposts and then click on the terminal and connect them. You will need to add resources into the outgoing connection of that cargo link. So say if you're extracting certain materials, you'll need to use that outpost link that we talked about earlier, connect it into the outgoing, so then when the ship lands, it'll pull those resources out of outgoing, and then it'll go to that other outpost and put them in the incoming at that other outpost. This is also available as like an inter-system link, so you can build the cargo link inter-system, and that'll allow you to link it to other systems as well. Now, you can only build a certain amount of cargo links at any of your outposts, and what I would would recommend doing is having sort of like a relay outpost. So for example here, like on my Jemison outpost, which is my main one, I want most of the resources to be pumped into here, right? And because you can only connect a certain amount of cargo links, you can only have 3 per outpost, but each actual cargo link that you build can only have 1 link happening to it. Because I want to have multiple things being pumped into that, I've built a relay on a moon nearby on like the Kurt's outpost here, where I can relay these cargo links into this system and then connect them all into 1 cargo link in the outgoing, and then it will pull all of those resources together and take them all to my New Atlantis outpost. I hope that makes sense. Cargo links are pretty confusing, but really the main thing to think about is just make sure you're connecting things via these outpost links. Think about the incoming and the outgoing and where they're actually going. Make sure you jump into the terminal and connect them to where they need to go. And then the inter-system ones, you'll need to actually pump helium into the additional fuel slot that these cargo links have. So you can do that by essentially, if like that planet or moon actually has helium, you can just put the extractor straight into it, or you can say build like a storage device and just put a bunch of helium in there and then use the outpost link to connect it to the fuel slot on that cargo link. But as long as it's got helium being provided to it, it'll then move those objects to wherever it's actually connected to in order to go to. And lastly, we have the crew station. So by building a crew station, it will allow you to increase the crew slots available at that outpost. Now, by assigning crew to your outpost, you can give you specific buffs, like say Lynn's outpost management, increasing the amount of cargo links that you can have. For example, you can view these the same as you would your crew by going into the crew roster screen. And then if you go to the current outpost, you'll specifically see the ones that are at that outpost. Your robots will also show up here as well, but they don't actually count towards your crew slots, but they do have a different limit that you can actually have in terms of your robots at each of your outposts. Now that is everything you need to know about outposts. Let me know any questions you have in the comments down below and I'll try and get back to you. Also, I apologize for my voice today. The hay fever is taking over, so I'm sorry if I sound a bit different. Thank you guys for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Norza and I hope you have a great day.